Welcome to Vintage Variety. If you're new to collecting vintage jewelry, or if you're interested in becoming a collector, then this is the video for you. Today I will be showing you some of my most prized and valuable pieces of vintage and antique jewelry. I'll also be talking about what to look for, along with discussing some of the prices that pieces sell for. The first pieces of jewelry I'm going to show you today are Miriam Haskell pieces. Miriam Haskell jewelry is highly sought after by collectors. She began her jewelry business in the 1920s, and her pieces have been worn by many famous women, including Joan Crawford, Gloria Vanderbilt, Lucille Ball, and the Duchess of Windsor. Her earliest pieces were unsigned, so it is important to educate yourself when it comes to her jewelry and how it was made. You can see the quality of workmanship that went into her pieces. Some of the pieces are fairly simple, whereas other pieces are much more ornate. Many Miriam Haskell pieces used a lot of wire work. They would use filigree pieces with a coating on it known as Russian gold. And all of these little pieces that you see here have been wired on. As I mentioned before, her earliest pieces were not signed. Later pieces were signed with a horseshoe motif and then a simple cartouche that said Miriam Haskell. It's important to educate yourself about the way her pieces were made and how they were signed in the different eras, simply because there are a lot of fakes out there. I've seen pieces on eBay that claim to be Miriam Haskell, where they had simply added the little cartouche with the Miriam Haskell name on it. You can buy more modern pieces of Miriam Haskell jewelry. However, those pieces are nowhere near as collectible. The company is no longer owned by Miriam Haskell's family, and the pieces do not have the workmanship or the quality you will see in the much older pieces of Miriam Haskell jewelry. To give you an idea of pricing, I've seen the same exact necklace listed in the mid-200s, and I've seen similar necklaces like this one sell for $500 or more. That's just to give you an idea of pricing on Miriam Haskell pieces. Many of the pieces, especially the parures, sell for up into the thousands. If you're a fan of Miriam Haskell jewelry, you'll certainly love Originals by Robert. This company was established in the 1940s and was originally known as Fashion Craft. Many of their pieces copy Miriam Haskell's style, and they are highly sought after by collectors. This was high-end costume jewelry. They also made jewelry for movies. For example, some of their jewelry was featured in the movie Viva Zapata. You can see how these pieces have that Haskell look to them. And that was because they did take ideas away from Miriam Haskell and try to copy that style. During the time that these pieces were sold, they were expensive pieces, and today they are highly collectible and sought after. So if you run across an original by Robert, I suggest that you purchase it because it will only grow in value. Originals by Robert can sell for up into the hundreds, and it mainly is going to depend on the condition of the pieces and if it's a single piece or a parure. I've seen pieces like this, a demi parure with the necklace and earrings, sell for around $150. This piece probably wouldn't go for that much because it is missing a stone right here. But regardless, these are pieces of jewelry that are worth collecting and that I feel will grow in value over time. This piece is a brooch, and you can see by the size of this that it is quite large. It can also be worn as a pendant, which is one of the ways that I like to wear it. And there's the marking on the back, Original by Robert. Some of the pieces will only say Robert, and some of the pieces will say Original by Robert. These next pieces are relatively easy and inexpensive to find. Napier Say Napier. I've heard people say Naper. I've heard people say Napper. However you want to say it. These are relatively easy to come across at a reasonable price. There's also Listener. This is an older pair of Listener earrings. You can see they have a filigree backing to them, kind of like the Haskell pieces. Then, of course, Coro. I recently did content on Coro, and I will link it below in the description of this video. Some Coro pieces are more sought after by collectors, such as Coro Craft and Coro Pegasus. The pieces that were simply signed Coro were a lot more plentiful because they weren't top of the line. This piece is signed simply Coro. However, they are still collectible pieces. They're easier to find, so a lot more inexpensive. But I feel like these are pieces to be collecting now because they will only grow in value. Another big name for collectors is Hattie Carnegie. I don't own a lot of Hattie Carnegie jewelry. I believe these are the only two pieces that I own. These are kind of like done in the atomic style. And you can see the marking on the back where it says Carnegie. I own 2 sets of these. They're both on the original cards. These earrings are only marked on the card, and I haven't really done a lot of research on these to see if they're older or not. What I like about these, and the reason that I've left them on the card, is they also have the original tag that says Hattie Carnegie, and by the looks of it, they may have cost 10 cents. If I'm wrong, you can correct me and let me know in the comments. Hattie Carnegie is a name that's highly sought after by collectors, and her pieces, similar to Miriam Haskell pieces, can go for hundreds of dollars on up into $1,000, depending whether it's a full parure. Other items that are really big with collectors are artisan pieces. You can see this is a hammered piece. And then I have this beautiful bracelet with coral and stone. This bracelet is unsigned and I can't attribute it to anyone. It's something I would have to do more research on, but look at that. Is that not a gorgeous statement piece? Pieces like these are also sought after by collectors, and they will only grow in value. Juliana jewelry is very popular amongst collectors, and many of the pieces are unsigned. The 2 brooches that you see here are pieces of Juliana that was made for Sarah Coventry. These pieces that you see here are unsigned. There are books on Juliana jewelry, even Facebook groups where you can get information and tips on how to properly identify and verify pieces as being Juliana jewelry. These pieces were made by Deliza and Elster, and they are called Juliana as a nickname by collectors. But they are highly sought after pieces. They are very valuable and highly collectible. Another designer brand that can go for up in the hundreds is Yves Saint Laurent, or YSL. This is a piece that I own that is Yves Saint Laurent, and I know I'm probably not saying that the right way, but you guys will just have to look over me. This piece would probably sell for around $200 to $250. So this is a good brand to look out for. Pretty easy to identify. You can see here the little marking on this, the YSL. So that is another really good item to collect. This is the only piece of Yves Saint Laurent that I have in my collection. But I do think it's beautiful, and you know, it's one of those pieces of jewelry that would go with just about anything. It's also a really good collector's market for tribal style jewelry. Pieces that are made out of natural stone or natural materials, organic pieces. Also, amber is very popular amongst collectors. This is a pressed amber necklace. And these 2 pieces, as you can see, are also made out of semi-precious stones. This one is amethyst. Necklaces from the 1920s all the way into the 1940s are also highly sought after by collectors. Many of them, of course, are 100 years old or older, or going to be antique, which makes them more valuable. Not just because of their beauty, but also for their age and historical importance. As you can see, I have quite a few necklaces here in my collection. All of these are either from the 20s on into the 1940s. Necklaces like this, a lot of times you can find them at really good deals, between $30 and $50. If you're really lucky, like I have been, I have found a few where the seller did not realize how old they were, and I managed to snag them for about 14 or 15 bucks. Usually, if the seller knows what they have, you're going to pay from $50 on up to $100 to $200 for necklaces like these. Hobe is another name that's very big in collecting, and the pieces can go for a lot of money. This is one Hobe that I own that is in its original case. A set like this can go for up to a couple of $100s. If you ever run across any Hobe, it's a good item to add to your collection, or if you're a reseller. If you run across one that's in its original box, it's definitely a piece that you want to grab and add to your collection. Pieces of jewelry that are from the Victorian era, Georgian era, Edwardian era, all of those pieces are going to be not only antique, but highly sought after by collectors. These are a few pieces in my collection that are Victorian. Victorian pieces were some of the first pieces that I really started collecting. Some of these are Victorian and some of them are Edwardian. You can see this is a tiny little bracelet. All of these pieces are highly sought after by collectors. Again, certain collectors only collect certain names or certain eras, so it's always good to keep a lookout for anything that might be Victorian. A lot of times you can go into a thrift store and they will overlook pieces of Victorian jewelry thinking that they're just the run-of-the-mill costume jewelry. In fact, recently I had a viewer comment that she found a great find. She found a Victorian brooch at a thrift store for like $2.99. I mean, how can you beat that? Some of these brooches you can buy online. They start out at around $50, and depending on the materials used and the condition, they can go on up into the hundreds. Pieces of jewelry that are from Czechoslovakia are also highly collectible, and here are a few of my pieces. This one is signed, as is this one. This one's actually signed on the pin of the brooch, and I had some wonderful viewers that helped me identify it because I could not read the writing. After I went back and rewatched the content on it, I could make out the writing, but I still appreciate anytime viewers help me out with identifying items. This one is signed on the back, and this was a gift to me from my father-in-law. I'll be doing content on these pieces later on. These pieces, I can't attribute all of them as being from Czechoslovakia. Not counting this one, I believe that these smaller ones are unsigned pieces from Czechoslovakia, but I could be wrong. However, these are pieces of jewelry that are highly collectible. There are a lot of collectors out there that's the only pieces that they collect are pieces that are signed or attributed as being from Czechoslovakia. Austro-Hungarian jewelry, or pieces with that Austro-Hungarian look to them, can go for a lot of money. They're expensive to buy and they're highly sought after. Now, this is a little bit out of my element when it comes to jewelry. This piece I am not sure of at all, but this piece I do believe is Austro-Hungarian. If this is something that you know a lot about, definitely let me know in the comments, because it is a jewelry that I'm very interested in learning more about. There are so many different brands of jewelry, eras, designer pieces that I have not mentioned in this content today. Try to keep my content short and sweet. I could not, however, do content on some of the most collectible brands of jewelry without mentioning Monet. These are just a few of my favorite pieces of Monet jewelry. Monet jewelry has become quite popular for collectors. I believe this is another brand of jewelry that is only going to grow in popularity amongst collectors and in value. I hope you guys have enjoyed this content. As always, I hope it's been helpful and informative to you. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to share these items with me. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications on more content about collecting vintage and antique items. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.